Hilchos Klei Hamikdash v'ha'ivdim bai perek chi'i. The laws of the utensils of the temple, the people that work there, chapter 9. A second chapter about the bigdei kahuna, the clothing of the Kohanim. Yesterday basically was about the clothing of the Kohen Hedyot, the regular Kohen, and today he moves on to the additional clothing of the Kohen Gadol, of the high priest. And he begins, as we're going to see, with the tzitz. The tzitz was the golden headband that went on top. The Kohen Gadol used to wear it on his forehead. And the reason the Rambam begins with this one is, as I mentioned yesterday in short, but today we're going to see the full thing, that the Rambam's understanding of bigdei kahuna is that more than their clothes, their adornments, their jewelry. They happen to be taking the shape of clothes, but they're tachshitim, they're really ornaments. And therefore the Rambam begins, when describing the Kohen Gadol's extra clothing, he begins with the one that is most like an ornament, which is the tzitz. That was all it was. It was a golden plate. That was only a tachshit. So, how was it made? Says the Rambam, Keitzad Masei HaTzitz. How was the processing, the making of the golden headband? Oisa Tas Shel Zav, you take a golden sheet, Rachav Shtei Etzba'is, 2 finger breadths wide. That's 2 of these. So a thumb on top of a thumb. That's how wide it was. Umakif me oizen loizen. It had to be long enough that it could surround from ear to ear. So it was basically custom made for every Kohen Gadol, or there was a general measurement that was approximated, but it went across the forehead all the way from ear to ear. V'kosev alav shnei shitin kodesh laHashem. And in 2 lines, you would write on it the words kodesh laHashem, holy for God. Kodesh milamata, laHashem milmayla, the way it's pictured here. The word kodesh was on the bottom, the word laHashem for God was on top. If they wrote it in 1 line, it's kosher, and actually says the Rambam, there actually were times that they wrote it in 1 line. The Rambam is referencing a Gemara. The Gemara says that there was an argument between the Chachamim and Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yossi. The Chachamim said that you have to write it in 2 lines. Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yossi said, I visited Rome, where they took many of the artifacts from the Second Temple, and I saw the tzitz with 1 line. So because he saw it in 1 line, obviously there used to be at least one point in time when they had such a headband with 1 line. The reason why the sages didn't accept that, so the Meiri writes, it's because just because of somebody seeing something, the sages are not going to deny a tradition that they had. They had a tradition that it was on 2 lines. Doesn't matter what you see. You can't, even if you saw it 1 line, it doesn't make a difference. So the Rabbi asks, what do you mean it doesn't make a difference? Tradition here, tradition there. If somebody saw something, how could you deny what he saw? Nobody's arguing that Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi is a trustworthy source. It's not like he's a chas v'shalom a goy or something, that we don't know what he saw. He says he saw the tzitz. So the Rebbe has a novel, very, very novel approach, that it's very possible that in order to save the real tzitz, somebody came along just before the destruction of the temple and made a fake one and put it together with the other stuff that belonged to the temple. So the Romans were fooled and would think that they got the real one. So the sages weren't denying that Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yossi may have seen what he saw, but they said that you don't know that what you saw was the real tzitz. Maybe it was a fake one. It couldn't be completely fake according to the Rambam. There had to be at least 1 point in time when they used such a tzitz, because otherwise the Romans were very involved in the temple service. We have documented testimony that they got very involved in what was going on. Definitely at some point in the 400 years there may have been 1 tzitz like this on 1 line. Therefore the Rambam writes that it was kosher with 1 line. But to say that that was the one that he saw in Rome, that they weren't going to believe. The Kabbalah, the tradition, is actually stronger in many ways than testimony. And the Rebbe applied this also to the Dead Sea Scrolls. So people were saying, Dead Sea Scrolls, they found them in the caves, so now there's a proof that the real Torah is mistaken. The Rebbe says the opposite is true. If you find the scroll buried in a cave, the chances are that one wasn't written correctly, and that's why it was buried. And the true one that we have, generation to generation, is the real deal. So same thing over here. The tzitz, the real tzitz, the sages' rule was on 2 lines. Sometimes, maybe 1 time, they wrote it on 1 line. The Rabbi even says one time it's possible that they purposely wrote it in different ways since the Torah didn't say which way to do it, clearly, so they wrote it in all different ways to have all different possibilities. But the main one is the two-line one. Halacha Beis, uniquely, the letters on this tzitz were sticking outwards. In Jewish tradition, we don't really do that, embossing. Yeah, we only do engraving. On a gravestone, for example, we don't have the letters stick out, the letters only stick in. But in the Holy Temple, on the tzitz, the letters stuck out. Keita, what does that mean? You dig in the letters from the backwards.
Embossing in reverse.
Huh? Yeah. The way they would do it is they would put the golden plate onto soft wax, and they would hammer in the letters so it would push into the wax, which is fine. There wouldn't be so much counter pressure, and then the letters would come out beautiful. It had holes on both sides, as you can see over here, little holes. With a strand of blue wool going in from hole to hole, so that same band could tie in the back of the neck. Basically, I can't show it on this picture, but this was one long blue piece. With a blue thread going through here, it would stick behind the band, come out on the other side, and you take it as a headband and you tie it in the back. There was actually also a third one up here on top that would go over the turban and tie in the back as well. But the main one is the two on the side, go to the back.
Very sturdy.
Halacha Gimel, Hami'il. Moving to the next clothing of the Kohen Gadol, the Mi'il is the blue cape. Kulei Tcheles, it was completely blue wool, v'chut of kfulin shnei masar, with its strands, each one in 12. Usually it's in 6, we said yesterday. Here it's in 12. Upiv arug b'tchilas harigasai, and the opening was woven. That was the beginning of the weave was over here, at the top. The einle beis yad had no sleeves. Elanechlak lishtei knafayim misoif hagaran ad lamata. From the end of the throat, it was split into just two. He calls them wings, but basically two sides. The common description you see in most depiction books is a clear layer in the front and a layer in the back. In other words, open on the sides. Yes, completely open on the sides, but coming down in the front, down in the back. That's how most people describe it. But the Rambam, and the Rabbi actually once said this in a private audience with the chief rabbis of Israel, Rabbi Shapiro and Mordechai Eliyahu, when they came to visit him, they spoke about this Rambam, and the Rebbe actually said that it appears to him that according to the Rambam, the Mi'il was an actual cape. It went around, and then it was closed over here at the throat, but it's split. That's what it means here. Nechlak lishtei knafayim misoif hagaran ad lamata. It's split, opening in the front. Kederach kol hami'ilim, like all capes. That's actually how we know capes. We know capes today, right? Superpowers, right? With the capes, they have it's kind of closed in the front, and then it's loose like this, but it goes all around. It's only connected at the point of the entire neck and throat. If somebody tears open the sewed up part of the mi'il, he gets lashes. As it says, lo yikareya. It's a clear prohibition. It should not be ripped. Truth is, from here we learn to all of the clothing of the kohanim that if you rip them with a destructive intent, you get lashes. Halacha dalid, then this cape at the bottom, you bring a mixture of blue wool, purple wool, and red wool. Each one of them an 8-fold strand, because it says only the word mashzar, which means twined. Yesterday the Rambam said the word twine means 8-fold. So you bring 8-fold of blue, 8-fold of purple, 8-fold of red. Nimtzu chutei hashulayim arba ve'esrim, which means that in total 8 times 3 is 24. Community, and you make them into shapes of pomegranates that don't have an opening, as you see over here. And you bring them and you hang them onto the edge of the cape. And you also bring 72 bells with 72 clappers inside. Every bell has a clapper that makes the noise. Hakol zahav, all fully gold. And you hang 36 on the one side and 36 on the other side. Now it's basically really one big piece. But the point is, as it wraps around on one side, you do 36, here 36 as well. And the bell with the clapper hanging in between them is called a pa'amoin. It's a full bell. And now you do a pattern of pomegranates and bells, pomegranates and bells. Halacha Hey says the Rambam, we're moving on to the other clothing. The tzitz was fully gold, the me'il was fully blue. The other clothing had a mixture of a bunch of different types of wool plus gold. It says there was gold inside of the clothing. How do you make a gold thread? So the Rambam says it's very complicated. The gold that was used to weave the ephod and the choshen, the apron and the breastplate, and it's clear in Torah that there was gold in there. You take one strand of pure gold, and you put it together with 6 strands of blue wool. Fold them all together as one. Same thing, you take one golden strand with 6 of purple, one with 6 of red, one with 6 of linen. So you have 4 strands of gold woven into the weaving work. For a total of 28 strings. 6 of each wool, of each material, and then 4 of the gold. Because it says, they flattened down the sheets of gold to put it into the blue wool and the purple wool and the red wool and the linen. Which means that there was a strand of gold folded into them, and it was done by taking basically these golds, you flattened down into a sheet, you sliced it into very thin strands, and that became a thread. Halacha Vav, knowing this, let's go to the actual garment. Ketzad maseh achoshen. How was the choshen made, the breastplate made? Oidek beged maseh choshev. So first of all, you make a piece of cloth. Maseh choshev, as we learned yesterday, means where the images are woven into the weave. You can see the images on both sides. Min hazav va'atchilas va'argama metelas hashani va'ashesh. Using all those materials, gold and blue wool, purple wool, red wool, and linen, al shmeina ve'esrim chutin, on the basis of 28 strands, as we explained. Arklei amma v'rach by zeres. You make it 1 amma long, and a zeres, which is a half an amma wide. So it's made rectangular piece of cloth. And then the koifle l'shnaim, you fold it in 2. Nimtza zeres al zeres meruba. So you now have a half an amma by a half an amma square. It was quite small. This was 9 by 9 inches. Okay, so this book is 9 inches tall. So the choshen was 9 by 9 inches. And you put into it the 4 rows of stones that are clear in the Torah. Torah gives all the names for the exact precious stones that went in. Everyone was squared. Square doesn't mean equally squared, it's probably rectangular. And it was set into a golden setting, which surrounds it on bottom and on all 4 sides. In other words, it wasn't just a square, hollow setting. It was an actual holder setting. It was a holder setting, and you put the stone inside. You engrave upon the stones the names of the shvatim in order of their birth, which means on the oidem, on the red stone, you write the name Reuven, and on the colorful stone on the bottom left, you put Binyamin. Now, traditionally, we know that the order was Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Yosef, and Binyamin, which follows the birth, but not exactly the birth. It follows the order of the birth, taking into account the mothers who gave birth to them. Yaakov had 4 wives. Leah gave birth first to Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda. We put Yisachar and Zvulun because they were also her kids. So you put them all together in one row. Then came Dan and Naphtali, that was Bilhah, she had next. Gad and Asher, Zilpah had next. And then Rachel was the one who gave birth last to Yosef and Binyamin. So the stones go on that way. Above the name Reuven, you also engraved in small, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the names of the three forefathers. The Kaisev Lamata mi Binyamin Shivtei Ka, and on the bottom you put the word Shivtei Ka, the tribes of God. Kedei sheyiu kol ha'osiyos mitzuyos sham. We want all the letters of the alphabet to be in these stones. Just the names of the Shvatim is missing a chet, it's missing a tzaddik, it's missing a tet. So included in Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Shivtei Ka, you had all those letters. And why do you have to have all the letters? We'll see tomorrow, really, because the Choshen letters used to light up in answer to different questions. So you had to have all the aleph bays available there at least once. Halacha ches v'oiseh al arba zaviyos shel Choshen arba taboy zav. You make on the four corners of the Choshen 4 rings of gold. Okay, I'll show it over here, really. This is supposed to be the Choshen. You can't really see them so close, but these are 4 rings. Rings on each of the corners. Ring, 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 and a ring. In the top 2 rings, where the Choshen is hanging off of, you put shtei avoises hazav, 2 chains, 2 golden chains. They're also called in the Torah shar shirais, literally chains. And in the 2 bottom rings, which come near the area of the nipples, the lower area of the chest, you put 2 strands of wool. Shnei psilei tcheles. Okay, now in a moment he's going to say how this is going to connect to the ephod, to the apron. How ephod, says the Rambam, rachbay kireichav gabe shel adam mikasef lekasef. Not as most people will depict it in children's books, that it went around the Kohen Gadol. It actually only measured the width of his back. From shoulder to shoulder, it only covered the back. It was like a backwards apron. It covered only the back, that's how wide it was. The orkay and its length, it went only from the elbows, exactly from the area opposite the elbow, in the back again, until the feet. The Rebbe over here contrasts Rashi's description with the Rambam's. This is where the Rebbe makes the main point that I mentioned before about whether the clothes were clothes or ornaments. According to Rashi, they were mostly clothes. And therefore they used to actually begin above the elbow, and they used to end all the way by the ankle. And according to the Rambam, the ephod came a little bit around, because it was a clothing. According to the Rambam, it's only an ornament. So it only covered the back, didn't come around. It went until the feet, not all the way, didn't cover all the way to the ankle. And because it was part and parcel with the Choshen, it was one big unit, it only came to the elbow, which is where the Choshen used to end. The Choshen ended at the area of the elbow. There's like 2 little handles, he calls them, coming out in the weave this way and that way, which means over here. At the waist area, even though it covered only the back, but there would be little strands that would come out to tie it in the front. They're called the cheshev, the belt of the ephod. The entire thing was woven with the same material: zav, tcheles, varagama, matela, shani, vashesh, gold, blue wool, purple wool, red wool, linen, al shmeina v'esrim chutin, kamasi ha'cheshen, with 28 strands, like the cheshen. The toifer alav shtei ksefos, then, not part of the weave, but you sew onto it 2 shoulder straps that came up, it ended at the elbow length, so at the elbow length in the back, they put up 2 straps, kedei sheyu al kisvais hakoyen, that they should come over and above the shoulders of the kohen. The koiveyal kol kasef v'kasef even shoyham meruba, and onto the shoulder area you would put what we have over here, what's called the onyx stone. It's a black stone, square, mishuka bebayis shel zahav, set into again a golden setting. Umefateach al shtei avanim shmeis hashvatim, and you would engrave over here also on both stones the names of the tribes. Shishal evenzu v'shishal evenzu, and again the Rambam uses the word kitil daisam. 6 on this stone, 6 on that one, in order of their birth. But we're going to soon see in a little bit of a different variation. The kaisvin shem Yosef Yehosef. The name Yosef was written with an extra hey, Yehosef. V'nimtzu esrim v'chamish eis be'evenzu v'esrim v'chamish eis be'evenzu. For a total of 25 letters on each stone. The kacha yuksuvin, they're written as follows. They would go across the stones. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. So the Rambam puts it in 2 columns. Yisachar, Zevulun, Naphtali, Dan, Gad, Asher, Yehosef, and Binyamin. And the reason this was done, even though none of the opinions in the Gemara seem to conform with this one, the Rambam has his own unique understanding, that he wanted both stones to be like one stone. Put the Shvatim in the order of their birth across both stones. They should become one unit. The only difference between here and the Choshen is that here, Naphtali came before Dan, but only because we want to reach the 25-letter total. So by switching them on the same side, on the same line, so by switching them in their order, you get to that number 25. The stone that had the word Reuven is in the right shoulder, over here, and the one with Shimon on the left shoulder. And then, at the end of the shoulder strap, you made 2 rings, again. Achas milmayla beresh hakosef, the achas milmata lakosef lamayla min acheshev. You made rings over here, at the top of the shoulder strap, and also rings over here, at the bottom of the shoulder strap, by the belt. And now, we bring in the Choshen, v'noisen shtei avoyses zav. So now you take the 2 golden chains, which we spoke about before, and you lock them in place to both edges. You put them b'shtei tabois shalamayla v'hema nikrayim sharsharais. You put them into the 2 rings above. These chains are also called sharsharais in the Torah language. You lock them into the 2 rings over here, one on this shoulder strap, one on that one. And then you take them and you put them into the 2 edges of the Choshen also. I said it backwards, but you put it in first here and then into the shoulder straps above. And that's how the Choshen is attached at the higher end. And the 2 blue wool straps at the bottom of the Choshen, you put them into the 2 rings that are at the edge of the belt of the ephod. And you bring the chains down all the way to the top rings of the Choshen. So they should stick to each other, and the Choshen never come loose from the ephod. As a matter of fact, anybody who does remove the Choshen from the ephod and purposely disconnects them in a way of destruction, like he gets lashes. Halacha Yud Aleph Nimtza. And therefore it turns out that when the Kohen Gadol would wear the ephod with the Choshen, the one unit together, the Choshen will land up right on his heart, and the ephod will hang back on his back. The belt of the ephod, being as it was at elbow level, would be tied right by his chest area under the Choshen. Of the 2 shoulder straps would end up over here on the shoulders. The 2 golden chains coming down from his shoulders, this side and that side. From the shoulder straps to the top rings of the Choshen. With 2 blue wool strands, kind of, what do you call it? Threaded in. Mitachas atzile yadav, under his elbows, mishtei tabes acheshen atachtenes, ad shtei tabes kisvei da ephod atachtenes, from the 2 lower rings on the Choshen to the 2 lower rings of the ephod, shehem lamayla min acheshev, which are above the belt, causing a beautiful unit tied together, worn together, on top of all of the Kohen Gadol's clothes.